Well, hello everyone, and welcome to my channel, The John King Saga. And tonight, today, this morning, wherever you are in the world, for most of us, it's evening. Um, we are here to celebrate the launch party for a book from a fabulous author and booktuber. Many of you will know Ro from all of his endeavors with Bald and Balding, etc. Fantastic group of gents that he works with. And we're also joined by Maddie from Emerald Dragon Lady, another fabulous booktuber. And tonight we are here to celebrate the release of the Sigil of Enderune. So welcome, both of you. Congratulations, Ro, on the book release. I was just mentioning, I just read it. Just finished it before the podcast. Had a great time. I know Maddie's read it several times. So we're here to chat to you about the book and obviously celebrate the launch. So once again, congratulations. And how does it feel?
It's always nice to be done, just to kind of have that thing. But then you realize that, that's only the first half of it, and it's the easy half of it. Now you've got to kind of bring that baby through the world, and while you're trying to start on your next thing as well. So it's a mixed bag, but I'm happy it's out there.
Definitely a labor of love. It's certainly worth it. Like I said, had a great time reading it. Maddie, I want to give you an opportunity to, and just for the edification of anyone watching, this can be spoiler free. So we're not going to spoil anything for this marvelous book.
No problem.
We're just going to kind of, give some general impressions. There's lots of things we can talk about without getting too spoilery. So, Maddie, what were your impressions, overall impressions of the book, general impressions?
I was definitely not disappointed. I've read a ton of Ro's other books, and it's definitely in line with a lot of his style, and I really enjoy that. And I love the epic adventures, and I love his characters. His characters are always so full of life. They always feel real and relatable. And I love the adventure. It's so great.
Yeah, I would have to agree, definitely. For me, I was just mentioning off camera before we started to row that I read so much dark stuff, and yeah, it's compelling, but some of it's really dark, and it's some of it is very nihilistic, and it was really nice to almost go back to my roots of fantasy and why I enjoyed reading fantasy. Reading those more high adventure, as you mentioned, Maddie, type fantasies with characters that are largely good, and they're trying to do the right thing. They're struggling with some things, but and I did really enjoy the character relationships in the book. I was mentioning that earlier. I like the mentorship stuff, which I want to talk about a bit later. I love the Finn Keolo dynamic. Their I guess their romance, love story. So yeah, there was a lot of things that I really enjoyed about it. So, Ro, what is it about this book that you feel? Is there anything that you feel generally is different, very different from some of the other stuff that you've written?
Well, the other books I've written have all been in the same world, right? So there was always kind of a through line, I guess, to it. And I wanted to do something entirely a different world at very least, if not, entirely different, because it's still kind of the same genre and everything. But I think also at 10 bookmarks, you kind of hope you get a little bit better at it, of putting it together and having it go fairly smoothly. And I'm glad that you thought it did. It was just a lot more kind of fun for me to write, just because it was different. In the back of my head, I'm still kind of working on the next book of my Rangers deck saga. That's still kind of percolating back there. But it was nice to get this kind of going and out where it needed to be. And just because it came about so quickly and spontaneously. So Mike and I were doing an episode of Bald and Balding, and Michael Roberti was on. And he mentioned something about a character of his who they had like tattoos that, and I don't remember it all, and I'm very sorry. But when the person died, the tattoos would fade or something, and that magic would be gone forever. Ooh. And And I remember sitting there and Mike was asking a question and I was just scribbling away. Um, and that's what this came from. And I just kind of thought, a world where magic has to be written down, not tattoos, but just, that's the magic limitation in this world is that it has to be written. Unless you have the Sigil of Enderune, in which case, not so much.
And I found that was a fascinating element. I really enjoyed the magic system, the mages, and the different mage societies. You know, the red mages, the the veiled sisters, all these different societies or tribes or units of magic users. Um, was it basically your idea to show that the magic is being used, but different people from different aspects are using the magic or trying to use or exploit the magic in different ways? And what was that commentary there about the magic and how these different organizations essentially are using it?
Well, I don't think I really went in with it to try to make a statement like that. But I mean, I guess you could look at it as so when I started writing, I was really caught up in having three different types of magic groups with different colors in each group. And I started writing that and realized it was just way too much, right? It was too far in the weeds to get into all of that. But I have a chart somewhere that says, these six colors belong in this group and these six colors and, whatever. But eventually it's like, well, why wouldn't you be able to still cast to start a fire with a pink spell as opposed to a blue spell or a black spell, right? And it's like, okay, well, you can, but the efficacy is going to be a little bit different, right? So if you're trying to do something that is in that color group's class, it will be more potent than if you do with a different color. Okay. The book doesn't get bogged down in that, I hope. But, there are always things that are good and bad, right? I mean, there are things that you can say, well, a sword is the only thing in the world that's ever been made for one specific purpose and one purpose only, and that's to kill people, right? That's the only thing it was made for or used for. But you can also defend people with it. So, it's more about intent than it is, what the magic does, but and how you use it. So that's probably all that where you're coming from with that question. That's all I wanted to show is that anything could be used by anyone for anything. You just might have to work harder at it if you're using something against its intended purpose.
No, that's excellent. That's awesome. Maddie, now I know for me, I'm much more, and one of the things I loved about the book was I'm much more of a soft magic person. I not that I don't admire really intricate, hard magic systems where everything's explained down to the degree, but I much prefer the softer magic systems. Just the sense of mystery and not really knowing necessarily every aspect. A general outline is great, but how do you feel about that, Maddie? And how did you find, depending on your love of or preference for a specific magic system, how did you find that related to the book?
I read mainly fantasy, so I read a ton of different magics. And I think what I look for mainly in magic system wise in my fantasy books that I read is just something that isn't regurgitated from something else, like put your own spin on it. I applaud the simplistic or the softer magics. It's nice. It lets you get that world building and character arcs and pulled all together nicely. And then you've got your complicated ones, which is like Brandon Sanderson. And honestly, I've only read one book by him, and it wasn't anything special. It was The Emperor's Soul, which was one of his very short books, and that one I could appreciate. But sometimes I can get a little intimidated by the harder magics. But if it's explained well, I think it works well. But sometimes I think other parts of the fantasy book tend to get left out. And sometimes those are crucial elements that you might need, but it's finding that balance. And I like Rose balance. It works great. And him and a couple other fantasy authors that I just automatically read no matter what, because I love it. The fantasy, the world building, the characters, they all work well, and there's a very good balance.
Oh yeah, I'd have to agree. Sorry, I share, and I've said this probably on many lives that as much as I admire many things about Brandon Sanderson, I don't think he's ever going to be one of my favorite authors. Excuse me. I've only read 2 books by him now, and while there's lots of positives I could accentuate, which is what I prefer to do, I just don't think it's my right thing. But hey, I have about 8 more books on my shelf belonging to him, so maybe if I read enough of them. But now, whereas someone like Ro, really enjoying, I've only read 1 book from him so far, but really enjoying and encouraged to read the rest of his stuff because his writing is great. So I think when it comes to the magic system, for me, especially with Ro's work, part of it was that trope in terms of, I don't want to get into this, having the magical mentor and essentially the apprentice. That's one of the tropes that I happen to actually really enjoy in fantasy. So I do want to get into that a bit, but quickly, I'm just going to put up, because great friend of the channel, Daniel Clauser. Hey, Daniel, thanks for coming by, buddy.
Hey, Daniel.
Very, very astute reader there, very articulate. He pulls some great reviews and commentary. So always nice to see Daniel join us. So thanks, my friend, for coming out. So back to this trope that I love about the mentor and apprentice. What I think I saw in this book with Sinjin and Finn and their relationship was that, I really like the fact that Sinjin gave Finn room to grow into. It wasn't strictly hey, this is how you do it, this is what you're doing, follow my lead, follow my instructions. If you don't, you're a screw up kind of thing. Like it was a much more I think balanced relationship that way. Although clearly Sinjin was very much the person who knew what they were doing. But I love that element. So I want to go to Maddie first, because I do want to know if that's a particular trope that Ro likes to see written a certain way based on the way he wrote that. But I want to know, Maddie, is that a trope that you enjoy in fantasy, and how did you find it was depicted in this book?
Wow. Anybody who knows me knows I'm not really a trope person. I literally just read the stories for the stories. I will pick up on tropes, but it's one of those, if it's done right, then it's excellent. And there are those that are not done right. I think the part that I liked about it the most was how he found him, and how he was just like, I think one of the most prominent lines in the beginning was, you have to kind of do this and figure it out. It's based on you and how you do it. And I was like, that is like the greatest thing that a mentor could ever tell a student, because students can often be hindered by mentors, and just that room to grow is great. So, and I think this is one of the first books that I've read from Ro that had this, either that or it's been a while and I just don't remember. Because I don't think your 30 Stone Saga books had the mentor thing.
No, because 30 Stone Saga was magic first coming into a world, so nobody had any idea what it was about.
Yeah.
So it was Lidria getting this magic, and the difference between her and the antagonist was just, he had like one guy helping him out, basically to pick him up and put him back together again. Where she had a group of friends that she kind of relied on to help her figure things out and to keep her from doing herself major harm. So yeah, it was very different in that respect. Yeah.
And is this like this? I guess the whole mentor apprentice relationship, is this something, Ro, that you had intentionally intended to explore? Is it something you like in your fantasy, or was it just by you didn't really throw it in there purposely? It just happened to, it just fit with the story. You want to write the story, and that's how it turned out.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of stuff purposefully. I'm a total pantser. I will just start writing, and I will write from chapter 1, word 1 to the end in order. And so a lot of it, you know, as I was writing the first chapter and kind of getting Sinjin together, originally, and I hope that this shouldn't spoil anything, originally Sinjin was going to die very early in this book, right? And then it's like, you know, I really like the character, and I named him, that's one of my son's middle names is Sinjin. So I said, I can't really kill him right away, but I also started to really like him. So it's like, what can I do with him? So the whole dynamic between him and Finn is as much for Sinjin's benefit as it is Finn's, because he's coming from this place of war and he wants something else for his life. So, you know, picking this kid up off the street is kind of giving him a second chance as well. And he doesn't know what to do with him either, right? But as far as the relationship, I've had an opportunity. I have a master's in strategic communication and leadership, and so a lot of leadership studies. That's probably something you'll find actually in a lot of my books. In the 30 Stone saga, the antagonist of the first 3 books, Winter, he's just a study in leadership, right? He's a horrible person, but he's actually has some. The way he does things is like straight out of the book. He does it really, really well. Again, like we were talking earlier, just to a bad end, right? So he's taking something that normally you would associate with someone doing something really well, but using it for kind of a perverted purpose. So it's kind of the same way with this. And you know, you get a lot of that from good leaders and bad leaders. You pick up things here and there that you can kind of inject into these folks. So.
Okay, now you're really fascinated. Now you got me hooked, because talking about a flawed character using, you know, great leadership attributes and techniques for bad ends, you got me like, now that's like, you're talking my language. So I gotta check that out. Quickly, another wonderful author, the amazing Joe Byrne. Hey, buddy, thanks so much for coming out to say hi. Joe is a fabulous author of the Hybrid Helix, Wistful Ascending, the first book. He's a heck of a funny guy. You just and just a warm, wonderful human being. So thanks.
Wistful Ascending. I've never heard of that. Where would I have ever seen that?
But yeah, it's always great to see Joe. Always a good day when Joe's hanging out. So, just to quickly touch on I guess if you want to call it a romance in the book. You know, I know that I like my romance, my relationships. I like that aspect of fantasy. I know some people absolutely detest it. They don't want to see it. You know, that's something that that it draws me to a book. It keeps me reading a series, especially if it's done well. So it was nice, you know, young love and a young relationship, blossoming relationship between these two characters. I know that I thought it was really well done. Maddie, what do you think about the romantic relationship in the book?
I think it's okay. I'm one of those weird people that I distinguish between the romantasy and the fantasy romance, because I think those are completely different. And the main difference I find is that romantasy tends to be more romance-based fantasy, whereas fantasy romance is fantasy adventures with some romance in it. And that's what I tend to like more. I like having a little bit of it there, but if it's not there, I'm not at a loss for it. It doesn't attract me to the book, and as long as it feels organic and not like forced, then I think it works great. I have read a couple others where it's just like, oh, that felt weird. I don't know if that was the right spots, but I haven't had any problems with it. And if I do, I usually state so in the reviews. So.
Well, I like that. Somebody straightforward. Sorry, Ro, were you going to say something quickly?
No, it's just weird because I don't really consider it, because I don't write the romance parts, right? There's like a line or two of like they went off and, you know, did whatever.
Yeah.
But fill in the blanks yourself. I'm not interested in writing that, you know, but I think it helps to have those relationships. I know my Ranger's Deck series is a ranger who can take the form of a very small dragon, and he's married, and they have kids, right? And you read the Sprite, right, Maddie?
Yes, I got to beta and arc read it. It was fun.
So the Sprite there's 3 books right now. It's going to be a 5-book series. In book 2, it started hinting that he was having trouble shifting back from a dragon, right? Dragons in this particular world are asexual. They just lay eggs, right? So in book 3, he cannot switch back from a dragon. And I don't think there's any real spoilers here. It turns out that's because he's pregnant. So his wife, who is also kind of a badass of her own right, it's really her book, just to show that there's a shared kind of between them. It's not all just him and the little woman's waiting at home for him kind of stuff. So, I have people getting married all over the place in those books. It's kind of crazy.
That is awesome. Joseph, who's filling which blanks with what? It's funny because romance doesn't have to be graphic. It doesn't have to have graphic, love scenes and it can be simply, for me, when I say romance, it's much more about the relationship rather than the actual physical act of the intimacy and stuff. Not that I don't enjoy reading that stuff too, but I'm just saying that it doesn't have to be dialed up to spice level 10 to be a really nice, enjoyable, and just to me, just having a relationship period of whatever kind, it just makes it very realistic because it's just a big part of life. That's just how I feel. That's just my opinion. So,
I was going to say that actually. I'd probably sell a lot more books if I did dial it up.
I'm so glad you don't, though, because you would probably lose me as a reader, because I don't like to read that stuff personally. And I think you touch on it enough that it's just like, oh, okay, cool. That's what happened. Great. Done. Well, moving on.
You get the idea. Cool.
It's very tasteful. Don't ever read my books then, because they do have a few moments like that. It's not gratuitous, I think, but yeah, it's
or like we like to talk on Bald and Balding, Mike's infamous chapter 18 of Haley Traveler. So, huh?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, which?
I remember that. I had to kind of skim through that.
Haley's Traveler. I had to edit it, so I had to read it multiple times, and I just kind of cringed my way through it. But Mike was like, should I cut this out? It's like, no. I mean, at the end of the chapter, you made it important enough to his development that leave it in. It'll just be something fun that we can talk about. So
that's awesome.
I considered for a heartbeat or two of making kind of a love triangle with the 3, with Faden, Finn, and Kalo. But then it's like, do I really want to do that? Because then you start putting animosity between them. And at that point, Faden was going to be kind of that not friend.
Yeah.
But then as I started writing it, it's like, well, why does that have to be? Why can't they just get along? Why can't they just be happy for each other? So that's the way I went.
Now, and like I said, had a lot of fun with this book. Was there because, and I know you said you're not as much of a plotter, you're more of kind of like freewheeling, and now was there elements of, especially the fact that Sigil was just kind of, based on what he's gone through, he's a bit more jaded. He's kind of on the run in a way. He's kind of like he's separated from his. I don't want to get too spoiled. His tribe, essentially. There's been a lot of issues there. Was it important for you to because at first I thought he was going to be essentially the main character. There are several main characters, but I thought this was going to be his story. But for me, it turned out to be much more of Finn's story. If I can, in terms of all the characters and the POV, how it was split. But I did love Sigil because, one thing about him is that I found him so, down to earth. Was that purposeful? He's such a grounded kind of fella.
Sigil?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he's kind of meant to be that Walter Matthau character, if I can use a really old kind of
I'm old enough to look at the reference.
right,
I'm
right.
not sorry.
Look him up. No, just that you're right. He is kind of jaded. He's seen a lot of bad stuff, and he just kind of wants to leave, get off my lawn. But he's comfortable enough with what he can do, right? And I think he kind of puts himself in that situation away from a lot of other people so that he doesn't have to do what he can do, right? Because he's not worried about anybody coming along and doing anything to him. He can handle himself. And he's fine. But he doesn't want to have to handle himself. And so like later on, when he connects with someone else, that's kind of a moment for him too, because it's been like over 10 years at this point where he's kind of been by himself and with Finn. So now he's kind of growing a little bit too, and kind of moving on into something where he can be around other people a little bit more.
Yeah, I really love the character. Actually, he's my favorite character. Maddie, what do you think about St. John? And just out of curiosity, who is your favorite character in the book, and why?
I like St. John in that way, but I'm also in that weird generation where I'm considered a millennial, but I don't think I am, because I was raised by my parents who have made it so I love a lot of oldies things. And so I look at St. John as kind of like, getting to sit down with my grandparents and hearing their life stories. And that's very nostalgic for me. And I love that aspect, and being able to go back and talk to them and do that, which I can't do with many of them now, I like that feeling. So I like St. John for that. And you'll have to forgive me. I believe her name is Kayla, right?
Kayla, yep.
Yeah, she is my favorite. Ro tends to write amazing kick butt female main characters, and I absolutely love it. And he just does it so well, and I really enjoy it. The way she's just like this, she take charge warrior, but she knows what she needs to do and how to read the situation, and that's what I like. I like that. I'd like that in a male main character as well. So it's not like I have a thing there, but I like Kayla. She was my favorite.
Yeah, she was awesome. I think she was my next favorite character, and only because I didn't get to know her quite as much as I did St. John, I think, although she played quite a prominent role. And I love that, relationship where, she was the not just the brains in a way, but also the muscle of the relationship.
Right.
And Finn in a lot of ways was kind of fumbling his way through it to some degree, kind of as he went along.
You could say he was the nerd of the book.
Yeah, but studious, but still, like, what I mean in terms of, you hit the nail on the head, I think, Maddie, with like, Kayla seemed very determined, organized, knew what planned ahead, kind of figured things out. Whereas, like I said, I think Finn was more, it was the nature of, because he was learning the magic. Like, he felt very much like, I'm figuring this out as I go, because like, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this. And again, kick ass. She was the one who could handle herself in a fight. I loved her character. So yeah, she was definitely my second favorite. And I think had I got to know her a bit better or see a bit more of her personality, I think she might be my favorite. Who is your favorite character to write?
I would probably go with St. John. St. John and Gorwin, actually.
Gorwin.
The little snapdragon. Yeah. Because he is pure, Statler and Waldorf. Yeah. The guys up in the balcony of the Muppet Show. He's just a small little snapdragon with a broken wing who's just like whatever. He has no filter. So, and they're all kind of fun in their way. Kalo, I like because, again, her background as a blacksmith and being kind of taught to fight, she has to think like that, right? And a lot of, I think, the way I write female characters Uh-oh.
Still there?
Oh, yeah, okay. I hit something. Is I kind of write them like male characters, but so in communications, I was taught men and women communicate very differently, right? And Maddie, tell me if you've ever said this to your husband. I don't want you to solve the problem. I just want you to listen. Have you ever
Maybe
said
my
that?
first husband, but not this one. This one is a
Okay.
great communicator and he's awesome.
Right. So men speak in a very point A to point B line. Give me a problem, I'll give you an answer. Women will talk through a problem, right, in a circle, not to get your answer, but to have somebody to bounce it off so they can hear it themselves and figure it out. They just want you to be there so that you can kind of provide that that visual kind of cues that they're making sense so that they can work their way around and figure it out for themselves. And knowing that makes writing male and female characters in those situations a little more realistic, I think, when you start kind of treating them that way. My wife always says to me, she goes, "How the hell do you have a degree in communications?" You know, because she's always saying stuff like that to me. It's like, just stop. It's like, okay.
Oh, that's awesome. I want to give a quick shout out to the awesome Shad. Shad, what's up, buddy? Great support of the channel, great friend of the community. Thanks for coming out to support Ro and launch his book. And of course, he says congrats on the launch. Shad's an awesome fella. I had the privilege of meeting him in person at a con here in Canada. So yeah, what's up, buddy? Hope to see you in London, London Comic Con in a couple weeks. So. That's London, Ontario, Canada. Not,
okay, I was going to say,
Okay,
not London, UK. Yeah. So now, bro, I know you said again, you know, your style of writing is more the spontaneous. You know, things play out as they go along. But obviously, you did do some planning to degree, especially with the magic system and the different mages and things like that.
Yeah.
Now, to pick up on Maddie's point and what you were mentioning, a lot of us, we love us some dragons. So Gorwyn again was a really cool character, and now I haven't asked you if there's going to be a sequel, but at the end of the book, it did indicate that some characters who survive that we'll see them again. Are we going to see more dragons? You think more?
Oh, the next book is going to be called The Dragons of Jix.
Oh, okay. Wow. Oh, yeah. There you go. You heard it here, folks. Maybe.
So it's not a series necessarily. It's going to be in the same world with the same character. It's just going to be a bunch of standalone books in this world. That way, I don't have to kind of get caught up in the whole series of having a thread that goes all the way through it. But if you've ever played D&D, you know that like in the first hour of a brand new D&D game, everybody meets in a tavern and gets to know each other and then goes off on their way. Sigil of Enderune is that tavern scene spread out over a book. So at the end, you have a group of people who are now, you know, you've got a fighter, you've got a magic user, you've got a cleric, and you've got a thief. Right. So everybody's there.
There you go. You got your motley crew ready to rock.
But the way I'm thinking of the Dragons of Jix right now, though, I won't tell you, but it'll be different, I think, than a lot of dragon stories.
Okay, all right, that sounds intriguing.
That's like coming from someone who reads a ton of dragon books. Yes, that's very interesting.
But when we go off, I'll tell you. It'll be a couple of years before we get to it. You will have forgotten it well by then.
See, that's the benefit of knowing the author. There's backstage access to all the secrets.
There you go.
Maddie, how do you like? I know you've read a lot of dragon books. You said I know there's various portrayals of dragons, from being the big baddies to being, you know, the heroes. Is there any particular preference you have for how you like your dragons in your books?
I do prefer my dragons to talk. But I really don't discriminate. I read all sorts. I've read your big beefy dragons. I've read your villain dragons. I've read your dragons that have tea. So it's a wide range, and I honestly can't tell you how many dragon books I've read. But I like to see different portrayals of them. It gives a nice, well-rounded view to dragons, and I think you really can't go wrong with them. If you do, you gotta check your writing style on that. So, but I think the one thing that I do like about dragons is I do prefer them to talk because it's fun to hear their point of view.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, you had a great talking dragon in this book. What did you think about Gorwyn?
Oh, as far as dragons go, he was my favorite. I was just like, I want to pet Gorwyn. I mean, I have two little ones that are very similar, but they don't listen to me and give me advice. They just backtalk and ignore.
Well, I think Gorwyn would probably
awesome.
backtalk and ignore too.
Yeah.
Yes, but he has a kind of finesse to him that he can get away with it, whereas mine try, and I hope they don't get away with it. At least as far as my parenting skills go.
Right.
One of my favorite parts of the book, and this is a major spoiler, just is basically when when Gorwyn was referred to as a dragonelle, and he kind of took umbrage with that. He's like, that's technically not the term, just because I just loved his character, the way he was just kind of not outright snarky, but he could give it back if he felt he was getting dished out.
Well, he's a snapdragon, and now he's in a situation where he's kind of dependent on this guy, right? Not only for helping him out of a jam, but now for everything because he can't fly anymore. So yeah, he's kind of had to take on that a little bit of that paladin kind of persona, in a way. But yeah.
I haven't heard of the term snapdragon used a lot in books. How did you think of that for Gorwyn? Like, how did you come to be that was what he was the type of dragon he was going to be?
Well, I kept writing Dragonelle, and then I just kept thinking that's stupid. It's like I need to have something else, but it's a small dragon, right? I mean, it's like the size of a good-sized dog or something. So I don't know. I was at home in the basement and just kind of thinking of different like dragonflies and blah blah blah, and snapdragon just kind of pops like, oh, that'll work. That it kind of says small, without saying small. So, and they do have a little bit of snap to them, as was referenced a little later in the book. But
yep.
Yeah, but I thought that was awesome. I mean, he wasn't a pocket dragon, but just like not a massive dragon.
No, not as small as the other one, whose name I entirely just forgot. Gaiman.
Yeah. Which I love the dragons in the book. I thought it was awesome. So for you do like, as what you're saying, you're a pantsero. You seem to have quite a bit planned out in this universe.
Not a lot. So like when I started doing this, because again, how I got the idea, I started doing a little bit of research into what do they call them? Not illustrations, but like in the Bible and stuff, they have those like words on the side. It's not illustration. What are they called? Illuminations, right?
Oh,
yeah,
illumination. Oh, sorry.
And I really wanted to do something like that, but it's really difficult to do things like that in Word. So then I started looking at different inks and how you would make different color inks to see, okay, is it feasible that you could actually make these colors back then? And it turns out that most of them, yeah, you actually could. And then I used it as an excuse to go buy a fountain pen, which was a fun thing. I've got like 5 of these now. And I wrote about 30,000 words of this book with a fountain pen on just, handwriting it,
Oh.
which is something I said I would never do, because it's just too slow.
Wow. Now that's old school. Now that's old
turns
school.
out that writing by hand is actually really good, because even though it's not as fast, it gives you the time to think through your thought as you're writing it. And it helps you remember it better. And then when you transfer it onto a computer, you're kind of getting a first edit at it, as you're putting it down. So, I mean, I didn't do the whole book like that, but I would certainly do it again. But again, when I was doing all that, I was going to get really in the weeds of all the writing and the spell making and all that kind of thing that I dialed back on a lot to, I think people, well, you tell me, you get the idea that the longer string of ink you can put down and the thicker it is, the more powerful the spell is going to be. So your limitations are how thick and how long you can have one string of ink going, in a unbroken line. With a quill, that really wouldn't be that long. And I tried writing in a circle myself, and it's super difficult to do. So it would be something that would take a long time to be able to do it with any efficacy,
Wow, that's incredible. My chicken scratch writing is not built for. I mean, I'd write a book and I wouldn't be able to read what I actually wrote because my handwriting is so bad sometimes. Should have been a doctor, as my mom said. But
I had hoped my penmanship would improve doing that little exercise, but it didn't at all. So just as bad as it always has been. But
that's awesome. Now I know it's sometimes hard for authors to pitch their work and compare it to other books, because that's how essentially one of the main methods by which we market it. So, but for you, Maddie, what's a comparator for those who are looking to get into Rose's work, and depending on their taste, what's some books that you would kind of compare Rose to, like books that people that you've enjoyed or people that you feel are popular that would be similar to Rose stuff?
I feel like that's almost a catch-22, because I'm one of those ARC readers that my ARCs mainly come from indie authors and not your traditionally published ones. So if I name some, there's probably going to be quite a few that many don't know.
Well, that's okay. We're just looking for just comparators, right? Because some people may know them. I read about half my reads are indies, so who knows? I
could probably compare it to the Dark Realm series by Tyler Edwards, which I think you guys have had on Balding before for his first book. But there was no romance in that one. It was mainly action and adventure sort of thing, and lots of twisted people. I would say it's similar to that. Man, I gotta really dig deep here. That's the first I can think of offhand. It's kind of hard. I read so many books that I have to really think and sit and think about it. But Tyler would be the first one that I would compare to.
Okay, that's good. I got to put that one on the TBR. I didn't watch that episode. I'll have to go and watch that Balding episode with Tyler.
Mike always says that to me too. He says, "We've had this person on the show before." It's like, oh, I don't remember. We've had like 200 people on the show. I don't remember who they are.
I remember, because when he showed you how thick the book was, you were like, you wrote that as one of your first books.
Oh, yeah. Several people do that. It's crazy. But it also depends on how you space the insides, right? I'm going to turn off my background. Hold on one second. Virtual background. Okay. So this is my first book, Magic's Genesis the Great. It is this book. This is Sigil of Enderune. Okay. Magic's Genesis is 20,000 words more than Enderune. Right? So
yeah.
But the lines are a lot tighter together, and people said, man, that's hard to read. So it's like, okay, I'll change it up a bit, and costs a little more pages, but whatever.
Sorry, go ahead. Maddie?
I think it works. And just off the top of my head, he's a little bit. Jason Hicks is actually another local author, and I'm going to his book launch at the end of the month. And I just finished reading Earth Might War, which is the second book in his series. And his is similar to Rose. I think it's a little bit more in-depth as far as writing. It leans a little bit more towards like the descriptive and language style of Tolkien, but it's similar. It's a little bit more in-depth. I had to take a little bit longer to read that one, but that one was also a lot longer than this one as well.
See, I kind of like that when people do that. And I listened to the first 3 books by Jacqueline Hagan, the Wickwire Watch series. And for like the first 20 minutes, it was kind of like, oh my God, you know. But then it's like, wow, she's really, really good at description. And it doesn't get carried away into the blade of grass kind of thing like Tolkien. It's description for a purpose, and it puts you right there. And listening to that kind of stuff, it's like I could do better with that, certainly. But at the same time, it's like, how much is that going to add to the writing of this? And at some point, I kind of like to let people, let their own minds wander. I don't need to describe every little thing. People can, a forest glade or whatever, they can fill in some of those blanks themselves, and it'd be fine.
Okay, so, Ro, what are some authors that you perhaps compare your work to? And are there any authors that have inspired you that kind of, made you want to do the writing thing? And
I'm embarrassed by how little I read right now. So
you've been very busy.
The last thing I work up in DC now, but I live in Southwest Virginia. So like every other weekend or something, I'll drive home. So I've got like a 4.5-hour drive, so I can listen to some books on the way. So I just listened to Skyfold by Tim. Help me out. My God. Oh my God. I'm sorry, Tim. I just blanked on his name. Your fellow Canadian. McKay. Tim McKay.
Oh, Tim McKay.
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Can you just edit that out?
So sorry,
I just listened to that.
No editing here. We're ghetto here. No editing. We just, if we mess up, we just keep going.
And I started listening to the Canterbury Tales to kind of help me on my way with book 4 of Ranger's Deck, which is going to kind of be a little nod to the Canterbury Tales in the way that's going to work. So, and that was I've never read that before, and that's pretty interesting. Wow. I take it you've read it before, Maddie.
Years ago, and yes, and I probably won't read it again.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, wow, in the 1400s, huh? Damn. It's got some raw moments, I guess. It's probably a good way to say it.
That's a good way to say it. Yeah. I read it in
just
school.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. Appreciate you, buddy.
Joe.
I remember in the end.
Joe is awesome. So, Ro, what inspires you to write? What makes you, sit down and pen all these characters in these fabulous worlds? What makes you want to write?
I don't know. I remember in 5th grade, there was like a little writing contest for 5th through 8th graders, and I entered that and I won it. And that was like the last time I won a writing award. And after high school, I joined the Air Force as a public affairs specialist. And the tech school for that is Welcome to the Basic Journalism School. So I spent like the next 12 years writing for weekly newspapers and magazines on Air Force bases, which was really a great way to learn how to write the newspaper style, because you find information, you realize how to package it up and get the story told fairly quickly. And it really helped work on like transitions between things, right? So I like to think that my transitions between chapters, if not paragraphs, are pretty solid. So about 2015, I realized I had some GI Bill money left. And I said, I'll go get another master's degree just for S's and G's. and I found an English program with a concentration in creative writing. And I said, well, I've had this idea for a book in my head for years. I'll take this. This would be fun. And part of the thing was you had to have a lot of that book down for your final project, right? They wanted like at least 40,000 words or something toward it. So the beginnings of Magic's Genesis was there. I used it. I started actually putting that story that had been in my head for years down on that. And then over the next 2 years, I just kind of refined it and figured out what I wanted to do with it. And I thought it was just going to be a one-off thing, it'd be a nice thing to, for my kids to have. And I can say this is something I've done. And I had a line, literally a line in that book that talked about that. It was like a throwaway line that gave some little backstory to something about this sword. And the page after I wrote it, I realized that sword could be book 2, right? So it's like, okay, yeah, I'll write book 2, right? And it was still really fun at that point. And then I kind of realized what I wanted to do for book 3, and for book 3, which is one of the favorites that I've written, I used Dante's Inferno as kind of the outline for that, which I've always wanted to do.
Color me intrigued again. Now you
Yeah,
got-
and
It's a
so
good series.
somewhere in book 3, I remember pushing myself back from the desk and going, "This is work." But book 3, at some point in the future, I'm going to re-edit and recover these first 6 books. And instead of a 6-book series, I'm going to make 2 trilogies out of it, because the antagonist of the first 3 books gets a full arc with like redemption in book 3. And then a new antagonist picks up in book 4 through the end of the series. So I'm gonna redo them as 2 trilogies instead. I'll have to do a little modification, but not tons. But I think once you get doing it, right, once you start writing one and you realize, okay, I can do this, because before you write one, everybody who's written one knows you sit there and go, oh my God, I could never do that, right? How the hell do you sit down and write a book? And then you write one and you go, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was. Let's do another, And then as you start getting older, you realize that you're going to need a hobby when you retire, or your wife will like throw you out of the house. So this year I also bought a wood lathe. So I'm making pens and things now, as kind of a hobby. So
you can make some swag for your all your books. So
yeah, well, that's the other part too, right? Is I thought when you go to a show, it's nice to having books, but it's also nice to have other stuff, right? And if you can have something book adjacent, and I figure what's more book adjacent than a pen? So
yeah.
Not just any pen, a pen made by the author.
Yes,
there you go.
that's special. That's something people will definitely line up for. So that's
but yeah, so I just keep doing it, and once you start doing it, then you just you just have another idea and another idea. So I have an idea for a sci-fi fantasy series that I've kind of taken. I like have the you have the little recorder thing on your phone. Every now and then I'll think of something and I'll just say for this book, and just have some notes for it. And when I ever get around to writing that, and that will probably be my project after. So my next book is book 4 of Ranger's Deck, then probably Dragons of Jix, and then the last book of Ranger's Deck, and then probably that sci-fi fantasy book. So
okay, well, we're some exciting news, and we're gonna be blessed by many books to come from the awesome Will Bushy. So that's fantastic.
Let's hope.
No, well, definitely.
Get this white hair, man. I don't know.
Oh, I hear you, brother. But you know what? You just keep on going while you have breadth and strength, and you see where it takes you, right? So
yeah. That's kind of the nice thing, I'm not having to do it for rent money, so it takes all the stress off. Really, it's like if it makes money, it makes money. Great. It would be nice if it funded itself. That would be like a really nice kind of bar to hit, but whatever. It's as hobbies go, there are much more expensive hobbies, so it's all good.
Oh,
Have you
absolutely.
ever thought of Kickstarter?
I have, and actually, for Ranger's deck, I had spoken to a friend of mine in Vermont who was starting. I was going to do a tarot card deck with the Ranger's deck storyline as part of it, and she was starting to. I think I've got like five. One of the suits is going to be flowers. All right, so it's going to be flowers, swords, hands. What's the other one? Bugger, I forgot. Flowers, swords, hands, and something. But all things that pertain to the story. And I was going to do that as a Kickstarter, but I've got a lot more artwork I've got to gather up. But book 5 won't be out for a couple of years at least, so I've got some time to work on that. And when I do that, hopefully, if I have that deck, then I'll go Kickstarter. But it's not something I've ever done, so who knows?
Awesome. That sounds like awesome stuff. Maddie, you've read several books by Ro, right? Clearly. So
I think I've read them all.
okay.
I might be wrong, but I think I've read all of them.
You're the one. Nice. Thank you.
So controversial hot take, you know, and you know, this is about obviously Ro's a great author, but everybody has their rankings and their personal phase. Where does this book fit in the great hierarchy of fabulous works by Mr. Bushy?
I mean, just his books?
Yeah, just his books.
Just his books. Okay. I actually do enjoy this one. I liked 30 Stone Saga. It's a bit more simplistic than Sigil of Enderune. Enderune's got more details in it. And it was one of those, I mentioned earlier, I read this twice in the span of 2 days, but the first time I read it just to get the storyline and to see how it played out. And then the second time I slowed it down to catch all the details. And then of course I was like, all the information was there. How did I miss it? And but I didn't have to do that with 30 Stone Saga. So I would definitely say this one is probably my favorite out of all the ones that I've read by him so far.
Wow. All right. High praise. Well, I mean, I know for us authors, we're always feeling like we want to try for continuous improvement. We want our best book to be our last book. You know, but that said, everybody will always have their personal favorites. I know for me, when my books, you know, people's favorite books of mine are not my favorite books of mine. So how do you feel, Ro, about Enderune and where it ranks in your favorite books of your own books?
I think this is my favorite book as well. My of the 10 that I have now, not counting the 2 novellas, the third book of 30 Stone Saga, the third book of Ranger's Deck, and this one are my 3 favorites.
Yeah. Okay. And why? Can you tell me why? Why is this book, specifically this book, why is it your favorite?
I think it just kind of felt more complete, right? It's like I wasn't kind of having to work because it was meant to be a standalone book. I wasn't really kind of thinking beyond that.
Yeah.
Well, I was a little bit, but I wasn't thinking like a whole story, right? I mean, I at a certain point I knew, okay, this is what I can do for book 2, but I didn't really go far beyond that. So right now, all I know is that they are going to Jix, right? This other island nation in the next book. I have a very vague idea of what's going to happen when they arrive, but pretty much nothing else. And so I didn't need to kind of bother myself with that. I could just kind of pay attention to this story and say, okay, this is a brand new world you get to play in, you know, have fun with it. And, you know, this is also one of the only books I got to about 30 or 40,000 words in and then had to go back and like rip out 20,000 or so words and just kind of almost start over, right? I had a prologue that was 7,000 words when I started, and I gave it to Mike Molman, and he's like, yeah, that's too much. And so I essentially just took it out, put in a little bit of a prologue, at the beginning, and then took some of the information from that original 7,000 words and kind of worked it into different parts throughout the book. And yeah, it worked a lot better. But so I had to do more kind of ripping out and rearranging in this one than I have any other one before. And it always makes it better when you have to do that. So,
Awesome.
because I mean, you're going into the typing knowing what didn't work, and it's like, okay, now I've got a baseline and I can kind of build on that.
Well, I can say, again, really enjoyable book, really had a good time with it. So whatever you did, it clearly worked. I am definitely looking forward to reading more from you. Hoping to go back now and start with your main series at some point, hopefully in the new year. And is there anything in terms of your main series role that you'd like to promote? Kind of want to get out there and tell people about. You give a bit of an elevator pitch so that.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the first book that I wrote, Magic's Genesis the Grey, and basically the thought here is there's a world without magic for about 2 chapters, and then magic kind of comes into it in a way, and 2 people get a hold of it, and they have to figure out, what is this thing I can do, and why does it hurt so much to do it? And one of them decides, I can take over the world. And the other one says, I must stop him from doing this horrible thing. But by the end of book 1, you have dragons in this world, right? So you get to see where dragons come from. And it's probably not where you think. And over the course of the 6-book series, magic starts to kind of infiltrate this world in various ways. So it starts to become more like the fantasy worlds that you're familiar with, right? So in book 5 of the series, this gentleman here, this is Miragon, who is a ranger who can turn himself into a small black dragon.
And who is also in the Rangers deck series.
He is the titular ranger of the Rangers deck series. And this is in the same world about 10 years after the end of the other series. And he and his wife and kids have moved out into the mountains somewhere. And he's flying around the mountains in his ranger form, and he sees an old lady in the woods, because old ladies are always hanging out in the woods in these stories. And he goes down to see what she's all about, and she takes him into a cabin and lays out 11 cards for him, right? Because that always happens too. But they're all blank. And she hands them to him, and then she disappears. One of the cards shows up with this picture on it one day. And he has to figure out what this is all about and kind of solve this little mystery before the second card reveals itself, right? Now, there are 11 cards, and it's a 5-book series. It was going to be an 11-book series when I started. I had an index card for every book. And as I was writing the ending of book 2, it's like, I could drag it out for 11 books. But why? So there's only going to be 5. So there's still going to be 6 cards left over. And I already know what's going to happen with them. Sometime in the future, I will write another series in this world that will take place generations ahead of where this one left off. And those cards will come back into play. So I do have ideas for that in my head as well. So it's not all done. I keep telling people that you can read Ranger's deck on its own. I don't know that that is true. I like to think that it's true. But knowing how it's going to end, having read the first 6 books of the 30 Stone Saga would not harm your the end of this series when it comes around. I mean, I'll explain it again in the series, but there will be a moment, I think, for people when they go, oh, in book 5. Can't hear you, Peel.
Take with the mute button. This is exciting stuff. I am very much looking forward to reading more of your stuff, Ro. This has been really fantastic. I want to respect your time. I know it's the weekend. I know, man's got kids there probably chomping at the bit waiting to get some mommy. And but I do.
It's dinner time here.
Well, I do want to give you, Maddie, an opportunity just to talk a bit about what you do in the space and where people can find you on social media. You know, if you find your reviews or anything like that, you know, your work. So please indulge.
Yeah. Actually, if you just use Emerald Dragon Lady, you can find me anywhere. I'm on YouTube. I'm mainly on Instagram because that's where I started. I've been reviewing books for about 5 years, but I've been on Instagram for about 2. And that's where most of my reviews are pop up, and they show up faster on my Instagram and on my Goodreads. And then YouTube after that, and then I've got a Facebook page, I've got a Tome page, and I can't remember if there's something else. But Emerald Dragon Lady, I've been able to get onto it where literally if you just search that, you will find me because nobody else has that one. They may have a variation of it, but that is me. And I love reviewing books. It's so much fun. I read so many books. It's not funny.
Well, that is awesome. And thanks so much again for coming out to support Ro with the launch. So Ro, where can people buy your books? Where can they find you on social media? Things like that.
So I rejoined Twitter today. I didn't want to, but I did. So you can find me there. You can find me on Bluesky. I have a Facebook group. I do have a link tree where you can find all that. If nothing else fails, go to Balding, and you know you can find me there. We're there 2 or 3 times a week. Amazon is where you can get my books. My website is down. I just started a Substack, so that's probably where I will kind of reinvent my website on Substack. And if you want to just send me an email if you want a book, you know, direct from me, I'm happy to mail it out to you, provided you're in the United States. Sorry.
Fantastic. Yeah, I just I can't believe I never subscribed. I just subscribed to Emerald Dragon Lady. So
I'm fairly new. I've only been on YouTube since March. Like I've had the account for a little bit because I needed it to help my son get on YouTube. But then I was like, well, now I have it. I should do something with it.
Wow,
So I've only been on since March. I leave more in-depth reviews and I do my book challenges on my BookTube. It's lots of fun. I have 2 book challenges that I do right now. And then the reels that I make for book promotion on Instagram, I put up as shorts. So if you look under shorts, there's like a ton of them. So, and I post those late at night my time because for some odd reason, that's when they flourish. And I get like 1K views on them at like 10 o'clock at night. So everybody's in bed doom scrolling at that time.
Find the time to do all that. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's great. Like, I mean, you have quite a few videos from you. You have almost more videos than I do. Figured out so fantastic. Well, looking forward to catching up on your
schedule. Well, thanks.
Yeah, looking forward to catching your content. And as for me, PL Stewart, John Kingdom Saga, shave self-promo time. 5 books out in the series. The 6th one, A Black Dragon on Red, coming out in the spring of 2026. So once again, this was the launch party for Sigils of Enderune by Ro Bushy. Awesome book. Check it out. Check out everything that Ro writes. Check out Balding. They are a fabulous, witty, smart group of gents.
And hilarious.
And just, yeah, absolutely hilarious. I've had the privilege of being on the channel. So
you're welcome back anytime.
No, thank you so much, sir. I'm honored to say that. And once again, thanks, Maddie, for coming out and joining and supporting Ro. Thank you to everyone who showed up in the chat. You know, and everyone who's going to watch the replay. You're what makes this type of long form content awesome. I don't care what anybody says. Long form content is amazing and absolutely love it. So for Ro and for Maddie, good night, everyone. Take care. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you for y'all.